like from that moment, we were like glued to each other like the whole night. So it's funny because like a lot of people that knew us, right? So there are people that worked with you, there are people that worked with me that were at this event, and they all thought we had already known each other.
Yeah.
Like they thought we'd been dating or something, or we'd been talking, or we're friends or something. But we were like locked in, and that event was probably like a 4 to 5 hour event
at least,
and we didn't stop talking. Welcome to God, You, and Everyone Else. My name is Melanie Thomas, and I'm joined here with my husband, Torren Thomas. And today we're going to be talking about how we met each other and giving some tips on people who are dating, single, engaged, and looking to be married. So today our goal is to kind of like just be a little bit more ourselves and to just, bring you in on what we're doing a little bit better. I feel like our first episode, it was like we were taking ourselves seriously. And one thing you should know about us is that we both stutter. We both mess up our words sometimes. And we just want to feel a little bit more comfortable today with you guys, bringing you in on that, letting you know just who we are. And so let's talk about how we got to know one another.
Let's do it. I want to go way back to when we first met. All right. Okay. So from your experience,
way back.
Yeah, way back. Because that was like 3 years ago, 3.5, I think. We both had a mutual friend who was having a grand opening coffee event that we both wanted to go to. Mm-hmm. So from your end of the day, how did it come about? Us meeting.
So on that day, I think it was maybe like 4 months before that, I think, give or take, maybe it was like a couple months, but I had broken up with somebody who I was dating. And then I was like open to like dating again. And so I was on dating apps and no one was hitting me up. It was like a desert land. And all my friends who were on dating apps, they were getting hit up. And I was like, why am I not getting hit up?
Yeah.
So I ended up going on like 3 dates before I met you with other guys. And the day that I met you was a day that I was going on a date with somebody. And this person is known as Wheat Thins. This is what my girlfriends called him after I told them about my dating experience with him. Mm-hmm. So basically, we started chatting the night before. He was like, hey, let's go out tomorrow. And I was like, okay, I'm down, sure. So I ended up meeting him for lunch that day. And so I was like, kind of anticipating like getting ready for it. I was just chilling at home, met him up for lunch. And the lunch ended up not being lunch. I ended up at a picnic where he only brought Wheat Thins and a bottle of wine. And he was like an hour late to our date.
Oof.
And so like so many red flags in the date. It was probably the worst date I've ever been on. And then like right after that, I left that and I went straight to the coffee event. And so my friend, my friend was there. The person, our mutual friend, they were putting on the coffee shop, like they were opening up a coffee shop. And then a lot of my girlfriends were there.
Yeah.
And so when I got there, I immediately started talking to them and telling them about this horrible dating experience. It was like a fun joke. And I started mingling around. And for some reason, I don't know why that date, it felt like a rock bottom moment that it made me feel hopeful. And that I was like, man, like, I feel like there's like this tension when you're dating where it's like, where you meet and have a bad experience and you're like, all men are like this, or where are all the good men at, or they're all married now and stuff like that. And I don't know why that day I looked around and saw like the land is plentiful. There are men out here. And at that event, I was like, there are men out here. And so I was just like, this is an opportunity for me to meet guys.
Yeah.
And so I was huddled up in a group of girls and I was talking to my friends. And then like, I don't know why that sparked inside of me. And I just started looking around. I was like, I'm going to talk to guys tonight. Like, I'm going to do it. And so, so we basically like made eye contact.
Yeah.
But I'm going to let you like share before you got to the event, what that was like for you.
Yeah. So for me, it was just another day at work. I totally forgot that the grand opening was happening. It wasn't until I was leaving, getting ready to leave work, that my friend was like, "Hey, are you going to the grand opening tonight?" And I was like, "Oh, it's tonight." I had no idea that it was tonight. I thought it was another day or whatever. I was like, "Well, I said I was going to go, so now I'm going to go." And on that day, I was scheduled to pick up my son because I had him that weekend. And so I was like, well, I said I was going to go. I'm going to go pick up my son, go home, shower and get dressed because you never know who you're going to meet, right? I just jokingly said that, like, just not that I was trying to look good for anybody, but it was just, a joke, right? And so I leave work, go pick up my son, go home, get ready, head there, park and stuff. And as I'm walking up, I see a whole bunch of people that I don't know, and I see a few people that I do know. And the people that I do know, they're working at the coffee bar. So I'm like, well, I'm not really going to have a chance to talk to them just yet, right? And I'm like looking around to see for sure if there's anybody else that I know or like don't know. And that's when, like you said, man, you made eye contact, and like, all right, so in my head, I'm like, she's cute, but I have my son with me. So I'm not trying to be the guy that just trying to hit on girls and pick up a girl while I have my son with me. I just wasn't about it, right? And I just kind of felt like that wasn't a good look. It's like, so I went around and made conversation with the dudes because I'm like, well, maybe I can meet another single dad or another dad that can just speak life into me and talk to me, and we could become brothers, right? And do you want to pick up from here?
Yeah, so I was just thinking about, so I remember actually seeing you a year ago prior to that, and at the coffee shop that you worked at with our mutual friend. And so I remember seeing you there and just thinking like, oh my gosh, he's so handsome. Like, and he looked so friendly because he was like smiling. You were smiling. Yeah. And I looked at my friend. I was like, who's that? Yeah. And she was like, oh, like he's in a situation you don't want to. You basically can't go there.
Rightfully so. It wasn't until I don't know when that was.
And we didn't meet that day.
Yeah, we didn't meet that day at all. Right. And I don't know when that was for sure, or like the timeline of when, I became single and my living arrangement changed. But I only went on, I think, one date after me and my son's mother had broken up. And after that, I was like, I don't want to do this. And so I had put into my mind, like, I'm just going to work, focus on taking care of my son, and focus on my health and improving myself. Right. And sure enough, boom, we meet.
So when I saw you, I had remembered you. Like, I was like, oh, I remember that guy. Yeah. And when we first made eye contact, you were actually talking to like a girl and I think another guy. And I was like, I couldn't tell if she was like into you. I couldn't tell if you were dating her. Like, I just couldn't tell the vibe. And then they walked away and we made eye contact again. I was like, okay, this is the second time we make eye contact. He seems like he's interested in me. He's probably single, even though he has a kid. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, like, I'm still feeling it out. Yeah. Then we made eye contact for a third time. And I was like, okay, this is like green light moment. Like, we've already made eye contact like several times. Yeah. We both seem interested in each other. So I'm just going to walk up to you and talk to you. Like, literally. I'm like, what's the worst thing that could happen? The land is plentiful, right? So I'm like, options are here. So I literally am like in a friend group. We make eye contact for the third time. And I'm like, I literally walk out of I didn't say nothing to my friends. I didn't say nothing to them. I just walk away and I'm like darting towards you. And like the first thing I said to you was like, hey, like I saw you, you worked at the coffee shop with so-and-so before. Yeah. And I don't remember kind of like what I led into.
I don't really remember that part either.
Yeah. But I do remember like I asked you like a question of some sort and then we just started talking. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The conversation from there pretty much just led to us talking about the books that we've read, a little bit of our our history as far as how we were raised and stuff like that too, and the relationship we've had with our brothers and sisters and our parents and all that type of stuff. And it was what was interesting from my side was that it was one of those conversations where it felt like I could ask you anything and that you would answer it honestly, and that felt refreshing because it had been a long time since I felt that openness and that like, oh, this person actually cares to hear what I have to say. Like, wow. That was nice.
Yeah, and I think that conversation, like from that moment, we were like glued to each other like the whole night. So it's funny because like a lot of people that knew us, right? So there were people that worked with you, there were people that worked with me that were at this event, and they all thought we had already known each other. Yeah, like they thought we'd been dating or something, or we'd been talking, or we're friends or something. But we were like locked in, and that event was probably like a 4 to 5 hour event
at least,
and we didn't stop talking the entire night.
Literally, the entire night we were talking.
Yeah.
And what was even more interesting to me was that as we were talking, my son literally just jumped into her arms, and when he did that, she like embraced him in a way I was like, oh, okay, she's okay with this. Because at first I was like, oh, is this okay? And she's like, yeah, this is fine. I was like, okay. It's like fine, all right then. You know, so I'm like, cool, let's keep talking. But somewhere in the midst of it, one of my friends who I work with came over and they took him from us basically, and they were like basically his babysitter while we were talking and getting to know each other, which was pretty cool because we got to like really focus on each other. And of course, these friends, people that I could trust, right, and not worry about anything happening to my son or anything like that. But it was pretty cool that we had, you know, basically all eyes on us, all right, and we had the support at the time.
They were like,
yeah, like there were green lights from people around us, green lights from us, and it just the stars aligned. The moonlight was just right.
Yeah, so we met on a Friday.
Yeah,
you got my number that night.
Yeah,
and then you like texted me, I think that night or the next morning. We had a phone call that day because I was so busy that day. I had like so many back-to-back events.
Yep. I
think I saw you that Sunday morning, or was that? I think that was the following week.
I don't remember, but let's backtrack a little bit. Let's talk about our first conversation, because I think that's where like a lot. Well, actually, our first date didn't really go too well. Like it went good.
Why'd you say it go well?
Because you were going to like he's not going to be my boyfriend or anything like that. I think he'd just be a friend.
How we ended.
Yeah.
Okay, so like at our date, we should talk about our date. Our first date, that was like the following week. It was like on a Wednesday. So we met on a Friday. We went on our first date on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
The following week. And on the date, we talked, and like it was like a normal conversation. Like we talked about our dating history, what we were looking for. And he never mentioned God. So for me, that was like red flag. We probably aren't going to see each other again, but I think he's so handsome. Like I'm so attracted to him. Yeah. Like I love his mind. Like we connected on just so many things, but like that part, like we didn't talk about faith, and I purposely didn't bring it up.
Yeah. And
because I wanted to see if you would.
Yeah. And I was still trying to figure out like who you were and like what your goal was and stuff. And, and if you were actually like really compatible or if it was just like a fling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, yeah. And like I didn't know this until, you know, after the fact or whatever. Like it wasn't going to be good because you didn't know where my faith was or my relationship with God at the time, which I was still discovering that and trying to figure that out on myself also. Yeah. And so we fast forward to our video call which
is technically like our second date.
Yeah, our second date.
Yeah.
She had such a busy schedule. So many things to do that she didn't have time to meet me in person. I'm just like, all right.
No, I think it was more like you wanted to meet me. You wanted to see me sooner.
Yeah.
And
it was
a video call was what we could do at the
literally time. I was giving you grace for that season.
Because then we saw each other, I think like a few days after that in person.
Yeah, we did. But in the video call,
yes,
we had a chance to really talk and get to know each other a lot better on a much deeper level. And that I think that was, I think we could both agree that was like the catalyst to why we were able to move so fast the way that we did.
Yeah.
And really like blend our lives together so quickly. And I don't know, let's just dive into there, because I think that's where most of like the most advice we can give somebody, right, is from there. Like we talked about I don't want to say superficial stuff, but like our interest, our hobbies, what we don't like between the first time of us meeting and like the second time of us meeting and dating. But like that third time of us meeting in video calls where we actually like got to the heart of the matter of like what we're really after and what we're trying to accomplish and what are our yeses and our nos for a relationship. So let's just start there.
Yeah, I think both of us, we had and have a mindset of like, we were ready. Yeah. Like we weren't trying to play games. We wanted to find a partner. Yep. We're not just dating for fun. And I think it's so important when as you're approaching a dating experience with somebody, that you know what your intentions are moving in. Yeah. So if you're just trying to get to know people, you're just trying to have fun, that's okay. But like, you need to know that and you need to be able to communicate that to that person. Yeah. And if you're really serious and you're like, I can get married tomorrow. Yeah. I'm looking for that right person, then you should also be clear on what you want and be able, again, to communicate that. Yeah. So for me, I already knew what I wanted. And actually previous to that, I was talking to somebody and I flat out was like, this is what I want. And they were like, well, I don't know what I want. And I was like, okay, well, bye. Like, I don't got time for this.
No time to waste.
Don't got time for this.
Yeah.
So when we met again, you basically were like asked me the question along the lines of like, why are you single? Yeah. And what are you looking for? Mm-hmm. And so why I was single, I basically said like, hey, I'm just looking for a guy who can keep up. Yeah. I felt like I couldn't find a guy that was growing, like wanted to read books and like go to church and like grow spiritually and mentally and physically and work out. And like there wasn't a guy that was really checking out all those boxes and wasn't intimidated by me also pursuing those things. Yeah. And so I was looking for a guy that could just keep up or be farther than me in those things. Yeah. And then you asked me what I was looking for, and I was looking for a guy who loved God, who loved his church, who showed attributes of a good husband and father, and who'd be willing to live a big life. And so and I basically laid it all out, and you were like, sounds like me.
Sounds like me. Literally. I think for me, because I had just come out of what I call a bad relationship, we just didn't get along that well when I really think back and reflect on it, and we didn't know how to support each other. And that was something that I didn't want to experience again. So I went into like this huge dive of self-help books again and just started working on my heart and meditating day and night. And like, let's go back to the prayer, right? That we talked about in the first episode. Remembering the prayer that I prayed to God and hearing you say what the type of guy that you're looking for, it just like sparked something in me. I was like, okay, God, I see what you're doing here. Like, I prayed for a woman, but you're giving me the woman that's going to not only like be my best friend and the partner for the rest of my life, but she's going to bring me closer to you. And like in that moment, it all made sense and everything just connected. And it became crystal clear that because I was saying yes to God, I got to be with you. I got to grow my faith, right? And faith.
So let's backtrack, because just in case someone listening didn't listen to the first episode. Yeah. You prayed a prayer 2 weeks before we met. Yep. Basically saying like, God, I surrender everything. Yep. Like, I just want a woman that loves you, that I'll do whatever you want me to do. If you just give me this Puerto Rican woman.
It's family oriented. It's going to set me for where I am, and for having a son, and is going to see the potential in me that I see and help me bring it out. And God answered in the most beautiful way. But I didn't fully know it until basically that video call that we had. It became crystal clear for me at that point in time. And from then on, it was just like, all right, God, I submit. You know better than me. Like, I can't make this up. Only you can, right? And it's like, for me, my requirements were pretty simple, because like because I had a son, like I needed a woman that was gonna accept him, that was gonna love him like she loved me, and just someone who shared values with me, right? Someone that wanted to continuously improve and who genuinely liked to read books. Right, that was like definitely a requirement for me, because it's, I don't know, if you're not growing, then what are you doing? All right, like that was the thing that was always in the back of my mind. You have to be moving towards something, and if you're not growing, you're not moving towards it. You just stand stagnant. I was like, I don't want to ever feel that. Right? And when you were telling me the kind of life that you wanted to live, I was like, wow, this is nice. Like, this is nice. Not only can we talk about, you know, the surface stuff, but we can go deep and still feel comfortable and still feel like we're connected and not going separate ways, but we're coming closer together. Yeah. And that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think for me, that conversation, I think for both of us, that conversation was pretty big.
Yeah.
For me, because I felt so attracted to you that I was like, if he says anything that like doesn't show me that he loves God or wants to pursue a relationship with God, or is any indication of that he's not into that, like, we would have ended that conversation. Literally. Like, or if we weren't going in the same direction of life and purpose and values, like, that would have just shut it down for me, because I knew that I was so attracted to you that I would have to like do a hard like shutdown. Yeah. Because I didn't want to not dishonor God by pursuing an ungodly relationship. Yeah. And so, so when I brought all those things up, you're like, oh, sounds just like me. And I was like, well, does it sound like you? Because I haven't heard you talk about God. I haven't heard you talk about going to church. And I just like, where are you at with that? You know? Yeah. And then you kind of shared like, I believe in God. I'm not opposed to God. I don't really go to church, but I'm really open to it. And so you were like, what do you want me to do? Like, basically, like, how can I prove it to you? Like, I'm down for this.
Yeah. When do you want to see it?
Like, when do you want to see it? Yeah. And I was like, well, like, I know you can't work on Sundays because you work, but there's like a small group coming up in a couple weeks and we could start doing that together. And so you were like, okay, I submit. And I was like, what? And you're like, I submit. And I'm like, what? Yeah. And you were like, do you know what the word submission, like, I submit means? And I was like, yeah, I know what it means. I'm just like, I'm kind of confused, like, why you're saying that. But like in that moment, like when you said that, it was like, it was exactly what I needed to hear, because it was so, like, no one talks like that. No one says those things. And like, for me, it was like, it was like the pivotal moment of like, okay, green light. Like, he is saying like, he's all in. Yeah. And it was very shocking to me because of my experiences with guys before who weren't fully all in. And also because I think God really like allowed you to use that word to like put it in my face, like, okay, like, this is it. Like, because I didn't see that. And I think we're, you know, there's like a common Christian like saying of like missionary dating, right? So it's like you date somebody to try to get them to come to Jesus, and then you can officially date them because like they know God and stuff. And I didn't really, I presented it like, hey, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I need. But I didn't force you to do anything. Yeah, no. And I said like, hey, there's a small group coming up. And you, as a man, could have been like, no, I'm not down for that. Like, no, I don't want to do that. And even if you would have done it and it would have been out of like trying to like get me into be relationship with you. Yeah. Even after a few months of dating, you still kept going, and I still saw the fruits of what God is doing in your life, that it made me stick around, you know? Yeah. And so like, I saw you reading your Bible on your own. Like, no one said anything to do this thing. No one told you had to do the homework that for the small group. Like, it was all on your own, that I knew that you weren't doing this for me. No. You were doing it for yourself. You were doing it because it was already something that was in your heart that you did want to pursue. Yeah. It became crystal
clear to me that like you were the woman. At that point in time, it was like, all right, what changes do I got to make? What do I got to do to like lock this in, to seal this deal, right? Because I don't want to mess this up. And you know, it was like, and I was really then learning to rely on God to teach me and show me things that I didn't know because I was new. And yeah, he just laid out the path, and like many doors were open, and I got to meet a whole bunch of new people. And in that process, like I learned that the community that I was looking for was literally in the church. And I was like, wow, that's so amazing that I got to feel that connectedness and that bond with a whole bunch of people that are now my brothers and sisters in Christ, you know? And it just feels good. Like one yes can really change your life. Yeah. Right. And it was just focusing on the things that I need to do to make sure that we're going to be good, and not trying to hold on to things that was going to hinder our progress or hold us behind. Like, I wasn't going to allow it to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, so yeah, from then on, we started dating. Like, when and you started going to a small group, you started growing your faith. We started growing closer together.
Yeah.
And then we were engaged 3 months later.
Yeah.
Which was so wild to think about it. And at the time, I thought I was a little crazy, but I also felt so like God was so in it, and I felt Him speaking to me and like leading me in this relationship. And like God never said you are supposed to marry Torrens. It wasn't anything like that, but it was like our values aligned. We were attracted to each other. You loved God, I loved God.
Yeah.
We wanted to be together, and we just chose each other. And and I think there was confirmation of like our community backed us up. Our parents supported us in it.
Yeah.
There was financial provision in it. And so we just knew that it was all green lights for us.
Yeah.
And we didn't feel like maybe there was like you could question like a red flag because of the dynamic with, you having a child and stuff like that. But for me, I just felt like, I grew up in a blended family and I was open to doing that. And I knew that as I got older, that was going to be more of a potential thing of me marrying someone who potentially had a kid.
Yeah.
And so, or kids, depending on, how old I was going to be. But yes, like what would you say to somebody who is single, wants to start dating or wants to get in a relationship, is wanting to find the one?
Yeah. I would say, know what you want before walking into it. All right. Because if you don't know what you want, then you're just going to fall for anything, and that's going to really suck. And when you run into something, like after you've established what you want, and you run into something that you don't want, like shut it down. Like, no, this isn't for me, and walk away. And I actually had a thing where we didn't have sex before marriage. Right. And that was actually one of my requirements. Like, if this is going to be the woman that I'm going to be with for the rest of my life, then I want to be able to be in a room with her for a long period of time, and be in a relationship with her for a long period of time, and we get along and sex not be involved. All right. Because in my experience, when sex is involved, it just changes the whole bedrock of the marriage. Of the relationship. And you put up with things you wouldn't normally put up with because you feel some type of commitment to the person that you slept with. Right. But because we didn't have sex before marriage, I was able to see you for who you were, and my perception of you wasn't misconstrued because of pleasure-seeking drives and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So just be crystal clear on what you want and stand for it, and don't back out, and don't be afraid that, as time goes by, like you're never going to meet anybody, and don't let the one bad experience potentially ruin the next ones. And what about you?
I would say just know what you want and know your boundaries. Yeah. I think some people are very one foot in, 1 foot out on boundaries and what physical boundaries and what they want to do. Yeah. And if you don't know that going in, you're going to end up with your clothes off, and you're going to be like, oh, like, I don't want to do this. And it's like, okay, well, it's kind of too late, Yeah. And also know that, if you don't put those boundaries up, they won't happen, first off, if you don't communicate them. But also, if you don't have those boundaries, you can't expect the same results that other people who have instilled those boundaries have. So there have been people in my life who are like, oh, like, how did you get engaged so quickly? Well, I didn't sleep with him. Like, that's honestly like the answer, is like, I didn't sleep with him. Yeah. Like, if you want a man to rise up to the occasion, you have to speak that into him, and you have to be clear about those expectations and what you're wanting from him. And if he doesn't rise to the occasion, then he might not be it. He might not be it for you. And so, and then praying for them, like praying that God, if you feel like that's the guy for you and he's not willing to come up to the occasion, pray that God speaks to him and convicts him and shows him the right way to go. But I think being very clear about boundaries and what you want, and not being afraid of that, and doing it as a woman in a very feminine and drawing in way, not in like, I'm not gonna have sex with you. Like, it's like, no, like, hey, this is what I want, and this is why I want it, and I would love to do that with you. in 7 months if you propose, like, and we get married.
Yeah.
So, just like being very clear about that. And maybe one last question, because our baby is waking up and he's out of his nap time. And what's one more question we could probably add?
I don't know a question that we could add. I thought that was the last question.
I think one thing I would say is, to kind of end it, is engagement. So we had a very short engagement, and I just want to encourage people that you can have a short engagement. You can have a smaller wedding.
Yeah.
We had a pretty big wedding, and I regret it sometimes. I think you can have a small wedding still be very luxurious, still be very beautiful.
Yeah. And
you could do it very quickly. And I don't think you should shy away from stopping something God is doing because you don't have enough money, or because you don't feel like you're trying to graduate college, or like, if you feel like that's the one and you feel like it's a good time to get married and you both feel good about it, your family feels good about it, go for it. Like, don't let other worldly things keep you from pursuing that relationship, because God obviously brought you together at this specific time for a specific reason. And so move forward in that.
Yeah. It's good.
So I believe in short engagements, and I believe in, if you know it's the right one, just go for it,
Yeah.
And if you know that it's not it, get out.
Literally.
Get out as quickly as you can, because it's less damaging.
Yeah.
But
that's it.
I think that's it, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to God, You, and Everyone Else. We hope this story was encouraging to you. And if you have any questions about dating and being engaged, being single, write them down in the comments below. Maybe we can address them in a future episode. This was kind of the you of the God, You, and Everyone Else. And, you as you're dating, as you're looking for the right one, as you are engaged, what is God speaking to you? How is God leading you in that? And how are you walking in faith with God through that? And, I actually was talking to a friend recently who is single, and they were kind of like down because they're like, they're thinking about this previous guy they dated and they're alone. And they were like, man, I just feel very sad. And I was like, turn that sadness into hope. Because if you feel this way about this guy because they were just so good to you and you really like them, you're going to feel a million times more with the right person.
Yeah.
And so if you are single and you're feeling that way, turn that sadness into hope, because God has the right person for you. And if he wants you to be in that relationship, he's going to make it happen, and you don't have to worry too much about it. So I hope this episode was encouraging to you. We'll hope to see you in the next episode. See you guys.
Bye.